Hi, Sala. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you too, Monica.
So today we'll do episode 4. Yes. And I just want to say, I apologize for my internet connection, but we're going to use psychological flexibility and adaptability, and we'll roll with it.
And stay in the present.
Yes. So today will be more on emotional regulation. And would you like to start explaining that a little bit?
Yeah, so I remember reading for the first time a book called How Emotions Are Made by Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett, and just thinking everyone in the world needs to read this book, that it was so genius. So she talks about essentially this theory of constructed emotion, which we're not going to go into here because we don't have time, but essentially that our brain is a prediction machine, that in order to make predictions, it's taking data from our senses, from how we physically feel, from our heart rate, from our breathing rate. And based on that information, it makes a prediction about what's happening and then how we should feel about it. And then how we feel about it becomes our goal. How do we focus on things? So I think her book is brilliant. I'll put the link below because I think everyone should read it. But she also, using that information about the brain as a prediction machine, talks about how do you use that knowledge to help yourself to regulate your emotion. Because one of the things that I often see is people who are experiencing rapid, maybe what they perceive to be negative change or overwhelming change, emotions can take you over. And then it's not that it's wrong to feel emotions. It's not that emotions are not valuable. The challenge is that they can sometimes stop us from looking after ourselves, from making good decisions, from thinking about what's actually happening and figuring out how to move forward. So she had some really great tips that I think are helpful for everybody. Some of them are kind of long-term goals. So for example, one of the things she talks about is how there are the emotions that we feel become connected to words in our language. And that then when we experience an emotion again, we connect it back to the word that we know. Oh, okay, I'm feeling sad, or I'm frustrated, or this is what complete irritation looks like. But what she said is the more granular, the more subtle the words that we have, the bigger our vocabulary, the better we are able to manage our emotions, because that subtlety, that granularity tells us exactly what we're feeling. So she explains that depending on what language you speak, you will know about different emotions. So one example she gives is in Portuguese. There's a word which I'm about to really mispronounce. My apologies to Portuguese speakers out there, which is saudade, which is a longing for a time or a feeling or a place or a person that's connected with emotionality and longing, but a positive sense of connection with that memory. We don't have that in English, and we kind of say nostalgia, but it's really stolen from French, and it's not the completeness of that word. So I think that's a great example. Or in Russian, that there is a word to say angry at a person, angry at an object. So you stub your toe, you're angry at the object. Somebody kicks you, you're angry at the person. And I think that granularity also helps people to manage emotion. So what she says is, increase your vocabulary around emotions, like learn more emotion words, become more familiar with them, become better at labeling emotions. I would say, I guess as part of positive psychology, I think one of the things they discovered was labeling emotions helps regulate, because then we're like, oh, this is the neurotransmitter I need to send out to my body. This is what we're experiencing. So labeling emotions, there's a lot of research around helping. The one that I think is super helpful and that I think people don't talk about is moving. That I remember having a client come in and shout, and this is someone who I'd been working with for a couple of months, and they were very, very difficult and not pleasant to work with, and she just started shouting at me, and I was listening to her and feeling like, okay, I'm keeping my face under control, I'm not glaring, and then I realized my leg was shaking, like tremoring.
Yeah.
And I realized that's not normal. I'm about to totally lose control, because I've now lost control of my leg. So I moved. I said, I'll make a copy of this document. I went into my office, closed the door, started breathing, just calming down, trying to calm down my own system, so that I could then go out and be professional. But moving is one of the easiest, fastest, ways to change your emotion. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're in a meeting and you're feeling overwhelmed, just say, I need to go to the bathroom. I need to get a glass of water. I need to change my chair. Whatever it is, do it, because the movement will help you to change the predictions your brain is making, because the data is different. So your body's now experiencing a different physical aspect. The prediction will change. Your emotion can change. It will help you reassert control, because what you don't want is your prefrontal brain to be hijacked by
Right.
your amygdala. The next one she talks about is I think hard for some people to accept, because we hear it a lot, which is finding flow. So she talks about using either meditation or exercise or art or whatever it is for you, to find it. And I think the second part that people don't do is schedule it. So it's all very well saying, oh, I know doing, a 10-minute meditation makes all the difference to my day. But if you don't schedule it and do it, it's not going to help. So once you figure out what that thing is, figure out what the, when you can do it, figure out when you can do it. And also the last thing is, she says, we need to accept that our emotions aren't forever. That even though at the moment we're deep in the sort of the pit of this emotion, particularly if it's a negative one, and it feels overwhelming, it's a little bit like what you were saying last episode. It's not there forever. It will shift, but things will change and we will feel different. So accepting that all of these feelings are transient can help. Sad when they're happy, because you're like, well, I don't want to stop feeling happy. But it's helpful when you're sad, because you think, okay, well, today I'm sad, this week I'm sad, but you know what? I will be smiling one day. There will be sunshine. So yeah, those are kind of her top tips. I think they're really, the moving one is my favorite, because it's so easy to do.
Yeah. That is very helpful. And you bring up a very important point. Our mind is linked to our body, right? Our body, sometimes we get tremors, or we're like, what's my face doing? You can smile. It's the same thing. It's like, oh, I'm smiling, goes to my brain. Yes. I'm happy. Yeah. So that is really interesting.
It's kind of, she also talks about, and we use reframing as a word mediation all the time, but reframing it. So she gives a great example of another researcher that she was working with kept asking her out. She didn't like him, but eventually she was like, fine, I'll go for a coffee. They go for a coffee and she starts feeling flushed. Her stomach is flipping over. She's got butterflies. She starts thinking, oh, maybe I actually do like him. She goes home. She throws up. She has flu.
Right.
So her body had started having reactions, and she was trying to make a prediction. What does this mean? Not the right prediction, because we don't always make the right prediction. But I think that example kind of tells its own story about how off base we can be, but also how we can use that. So she talks about, and I'm guessing this is something you've also talked about, is performance. That if we're going into an exam, instead of saying I feel anxious, start saying I feel excited, because the sensations are the same. And if we can reframe it, the chances of us performing better are higher. So I think that connection of mind body, we don't exploit enough for our benefit. We're kind of the victims of it, but we should be driving some of that.
Yeah. And so emotions aren't negative. They feel negative, but they give us information. So, oh, I have butterflies. Maybe I like him. I'm sick.
Well, maybe I've got
right. So, oh, I feel heavy today. Well, maybe I should label that feeling like, okay, I'm feeling sad. It's in my chest. Maybe I can just open up that space in my chest and see what's there. What is my body trying to tell me? Especially when we're busy. We're here and we're not paying attention. Did I eat today? Did I drink? What am I feeling? What tension am I holding in my body? Where am I tight? Where am I stressed? Yeah.
So those were sort of, I guess, some emotional regulation tools. But I guess you were going to teach us a little bit of EMDR. Do you want to just explain what EMDR is?
Yes. So EMDR is an eye movement technique to kind of, and it helps people go into the body, because we ask, okay, well, where do you feel that? Right. And then the body gets activated. Like when we talked about the gas and the brakes. Well, first time I'm going to put on the gas, and then the eye movement helps people to process whatever hasn't been processed, because the gas has been on and they can't think.
Right.
So when you see the fingers, your eyes go back and forth, your hippocampus is distracted because the hippocampus looks for threat and novelty.
Right.
And so now that's distracted. So what's sitting back there? What's happening in my body? How do I put this together? That's the processing bit.
Right.
But I'm not going to use the processing bit today because that will definitely throw people's emotions into gas. We're going to try and put on the brakes.
Right. I guess
And
what you're saying though is that this is a way of tuning out the noise so that you can actually hear what's happening.
Yeah. So it's kind of complicated, the processing trauma bit, because definitely it will go gas. We're activating you, and then we're going to desensitize it by putting on the brakes.
Yeah. But I guess that learning has enabled EMDR practitioners to find ways to turn on the brakes.
Yes, but before you even start with all that fun stuff, you have to teach people how to calm themselves first.
Yeah.
Because if you just throw them off the ledge, let's help you relive the trauma with no tools.
Yeah.
It's definitely overwhelmed.
Yes. I guess
and so first,
EMDR is a technique that people can use to try and deal with trauma. Not what we're talking about today. Today we're just trying to use some of those techniques to help with the self-soothing.
Yeah. So this would be maybe before EMDR.
Yeah.
But it's still using EMDR techniques.
Right.
Put it that way. So last episode we were talking about if I'm in a negative mood, I have negative thoughts, everything negative. So we can use our very, very powerful with imagery to help our body this emotion, right? And so one of the techniques is using a container. Mm-hmm. So let's say I have grease. I wake up and I'm like, I don't want to do today. I'm struggling to get out of bed. How can I lift that grease, put it in a container, and when I'm home tonight, I'll get back to that grease. Right. So that while I'm at work, I'm focused and I'm present, right? And so the technique is first using imagery, but you teach people how to tap by themselves because this is hard to do by yourself and not recommended. And so there's different tapping techniques. That's the same right, left stimulation, which is like when we sleep, our eyes are going back and forth too. We're processing whatever we didn't have time to process during the day. And so we can go back and forth with a butterfly hug.
Okay, I'm going to try it too.
We can tap hair. We can tap our legs, anything right and left. Lift one foot up, right, left. And we do this after we do the visualization. When that visualization is calming us, we can strengthen it with tapping. And so if I had a container and I can put feelings in there, I can put stress in there, what would it look like, right? So there's a place I can put things in. Mm-hmm. And when I'm ready to deal with this big emotion, this big stressor, I'm going to take it out. Right. And maybe I schedule it.
Right.
So the first thing is,
visualize that container. So something that maybe is a container that you know really well, so that you can picture it. So the more detailed it is, I'm guessing the better the more powerful this is.
It can be detailed.
Container.
Yes. So you want to bring it up in your mind. So everyone has a different container. Everyone. Right. So when I did it, I was thinking of a cloud, kind of like putting the things in the cloud. And when I'm ready, it'll rain. And so you can imagine it. Yeah. So if you were just to imagine the container now and think about what stressed me out this week, can I just, even the thought of having a container, can I feel that release in my body?
Yeah.
Like, oh, it feels kind of nice knowing I can put something away. And then when I'm calm, I can tap in that calm.
Yeah. So you visualize kind of putting the concern, the stress, whatever it is, the overwhelm in the container. And then as you're doing that, you do this bilateral tapping. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I will have to put the name of the person who came up with this in the comments. I need to look it up. I apologize for that. And so this one with brain is very visual and powerful. So one thing I like to do is imagine when I'm feeling really down, like heavy, I like to imagine the last time I felt truly, truly loved. And it's usually somebody giving me a hug. And I just imagine it in my mind, oh, I can feel that hug throughout my whole entire body. And I sit with that feeling as long as I need to until I'm feeling okay. That big overwhelmed feeling is relieved and I can move, because you talked about moving, but what if you're in freeze?
Yeah.
Because when you're in freeze, you're like, oh, I can't move. I'm hijacked.
Yeah.
And so there's gas, which is flight or fight.
Mm-hmm.
And then one thing is, it's not really the brakes, but it's just freeze. I'm not moving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I just cut out there?
No, you're still with us.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess those are really helpful. I think one thing is it kind of reminds me of Breakfast at Tiffany's, where she talks about getting the mean reds. When you're sad, you don't even know why. And the only thing that calms her down is to actually go to Tiffany's, to physically be in a space where she feels that nothing bad could ever happen to you.
Yeah, that's also another way, right?
Yeah, but I guess what you're saying is she could have also stayed home and visualized being at Tiffany's to create that same sense of safety.
Yeah, and that's another technique people use, right? Is what is my safe place?
Yeah.
And some people, they imagine it. Well, if I had a safe place, it's in the meadows and the mountains. People who've been through a lot of trauma, they often say it's on a mountain, far away from everyone, right? Yeah. So I have this space, I can see what's coming. Yeah. So our brains are very, very powerful. We can shift our mood. We can use self-compassion. We can use imagery, all of that.
Okay. I'm just going to share some of the things that we do in mediation to help people stay focused and help them regulate emotions. So one of the things that we always do is take breaks. That break is a trigger for people to get up, even if it's just to go to the bathroom, maybe to go outside and have a coffee. I have a whole group of clients who this is their opportunity to go and smoke a cigarette outside, but the reason we do it is people need the mental release, but it's about moving. It's about moving to help them regulate emotion. We ask people to take notes. So often people get very triggered listening to what the other person is saying. And one of the things that we ask people to do is to take notes, because if you're using your prefrontal cortex, which you have to write or to do mathematics, you have to turn it on. You have to quiet some of the noise that you're getting from your amygdala to actually do the exercise of writing. And so if you're listening to somebody and getting more and more angry, if you start writing, it's a way of helping people to calm, to soothe. We use separate rooms. So I think that's another thing that people maybe don't realize, but just having some physical divide, some physical space can also be soothing, even if it's temporary. But I also have clients who'll go into a separate room and say, okay, I need to do a headspace meditation. So they'll actually say, I need a break. The other person, I think, probably thinks they're calling their lawyer. Actually, they're getting on the meditation app and just doing a little mini meditation to help calm themselves and to refocus. So I guess what it says is lots of different ways that people can achieve some emotional regulation, and it's really finding what works for you. Although I would say I don't know anyone that moving doesn't work for. I haven't seen anybody not be helped by moving. So yeah.
Maybe that's the flight response too. So you sat there, maybe you felt frozen and you forced the movement.
Yes,
right?
You experience some physical movement. Yeah, I think it just really helps. I think it can reset a mood. It also just
so I think it's but you bring a good point. Everybody's different. Everyone relaxes differently. Everyone decompresses differently. Yeah. And so when we're wired too high, so we need to bring it down. So relaxing, decompressing every day, every single day. And people say, I don't have time. Yeah. But once you do it, make a habit of it, you're less likely to go into that fight or flight because you're naturally just bringing your wiring down. Yeah. So breathing, music, yoga, dance, finding the flow that you spoke can also be relaxing.
Yeah, and it's about building capacity. It's about putting some capacity back into the system as opposed to taking capacity out of the system.
Yes. Yeah. Which I guess would be an energy, right? So earlier, it's like, well, I'm giving. How do I get some energy back? So that threshold isn't breaking and my physical body isn't breaking down. Because if I'm sick physically, then maybe also I feel more anxious or depressed or.
Yeah. So Robin Huworth, who Monica also knows is a mediator, who always says, who is putting apples in your basket?
Yeah.
Because you're giving apples out every day, but who is putting the
Yes.
apples in your basket? How are you getting your basket filled?
Yes. Good one.
Yeah. Yes. Apples are good. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us for episode 4. And we look forward to seeing you for episode 5. And we're going to talk about people who thrive on change.
Hard to believe, but it happens.
Believe it or not. Okay. See you, Monica.
See you.